With the brand new season of Higurashi about to come out at the beginning of July, with a teaser trailer and a full trailer out already, I figured now was as good a time as any to fulfill my promise on making another Higurashi video, primarily on Go. But this one is honestly different than what I had planned. Instead of giving you my reviews and thoughts of just Higurashi Go, I'm going to talk to you guys about why I like Go and how it made the entirety of Higurashi basically in my top 15, almost top 10 anime of all time, and it is so close to being a 10 out of 10 for me. As of right now, it's like a 9 out of 10, but it's just so close to being a 10 out of 10 series that I honestly cannot express my excitement for the next season to come out. But if you're new to the channel, if you haven't seen already and you like Higurashi, I actually made a video back in around November talking about the original series and how much I enjoyed it and its strengths. So please go and give that a watch. I'll probably put a link up in the top left corner in the info card or down below in the description. But yeah, that video gives you my general thoughts of the original Higurashi series, primarily the anime. I have yet to read the manga and the visual novels, unfortunately. I have had a bunch of stuff. I have a lot of stuff to watch and read that I have on my watch and read list. So I'm trying to find the time to actually read all that stuff. But with that all aside, Higurashi Go honestly was one of my favorite anime over the past year. Fall 2020 and winter of 2021, I watched Higurashi religiously every single Thursday. Which is ironic considering that one episode of Higurashi actually played on Christmas Eve. So, yeah, that was a weird Christmas. But anyway, Higurashi Go has honestly given me a brand new appreciation for this series as a whole, and the franchise as a whole, as I originally thought, like many others, that this was going to be a reboot or remake of the original Higurashi. Now, I had not seen Higurashi at the time of that show's first episode airing, so I was like, okay, it's fine. But then, before I go to watch episode 2, I hear that it's actually secretly a sequel to the series, as things have been revealed about certain aspects of the show that have not been stated at the beginning and therefore make it a sequel. And by the end, and it's primarily by the episode 2, and even by the midway point of Go, it is 100% a sequel to the original Higurashi. Now, for the purposes of this video, I should have said this at the beginning, but this is going to contain heavy spoilers for the original Higurashi and Higurashi Go, as I am going to give my full-on explanations on why I believe that this series has gotten so good and why it is one of my all-time personal favorites. So with that all out of the way, quick spoiler warning to get off the video because I'm going to talk about spoilers. Alright, so in 3, 2, 1. Alright, so Higurashi, one thing that I never really thought I would like at all is horror. I stated this in my first Higurashi video that I never liked horror, and it was never something that meshed well with me. But over time, I saw other shows and even anime and manga that had horror aspects or was just full-on horror, and I ended up really enjoying it. What I never mentioned, because I never finished it, was that School Live was the first horror anime and manga that I actually watched, read, and completed. I might actually make a video on School Live manga at some point in the future, but that was the first real horror aspect of medium that wasn't live action that I genuinely enjoyed, and I liked the whole aspect of horror. Live action, I more got from Supernatural. It had a lot of horror elements, so it kind of helped desensitize me or make me get used to horror elements like mass death, gruesome deaths, or, you know, high suspenseful moments. So when I came to Higurashi, while I did in fact not blink an eye to some moments, the way things were handled in Higurashi as a whole was just a whole other beast. The tension, the suspense, the immense paranoia of what's going to happen next or who is going to be a killer. It plays with your expectations in ways that you don't really get, and even when you know like the mysteries and the answers to how all this is happening, you're still wondering what's going to happen next. Higurashi takes place in the town of Hinamizawa, and it is basically in an endless time loop from the original, where the actual main protagonist, Rika Furude, has been given the ability to loop. Every time she dies, she is brought back in time to the same month of June 1983 to relive that exact same month. And she is basically doomed to die after the town's annual cotton drifting festival, after a bunch of mysterious deaths over the past 5 years. In almost every single loop, one of her best friends ends up becoming a murderer in some case, succumbing to something called Hinamizawa syndrome, which basically takes their paranoia and murderous tendencies to a bunch of to insanely high levels, to the fact where they can hallucinate and not trust anyone and even go on a killing spree. And a lot of times the reactions are done differently per person. And that's what the real interest of Higurashi ended up becoming, because in the first season, we just thought everybody was going crazy because of all this paranoia and some kind of curse. And to an extent, it might actually be a curse. But when we get to Kai, we realize that all this is happening for one particular reason, and by the time Kai ends, Rika finally manages to find a path out of this endless time loop to get her happy ending. And we're all happy for her because she and all her friends actually can live their lives beyond that exact same month, instead of being trapped in that time loop for over 100 years, with her being the only one to remember what has transpired and knowing the full truth. And in comes Go, basically starting off the exact same way as the original Higurashi, but by the end of the first episode and the start of episode 2, it spoils Rika's fundamental importance in the fact that she is a looper, as well as the fact that Hanyu, and a very important character, and the one that has given Rika the ability to time loop, was revealed in episode 2, thus giving us the impression that things aren't going to play out the exact same way, as it has been implied that Rika has gone out of this time loop, and now she must find a way out of it again. But with each of the opening arcs, these new question arcs, things start off relatively similar to how they were in the original series, but with different scenes, different things are happening that make you think, what is going to happen next? And one of the key differences is that Rika actually takes more of an active role in these new arcs, as in the first one she didn't really do anything. She let things play their course or tried it in more subtle ways. In this new season, Rika was being, while still vague, very direct in trying to avert catastrophe. In this way, no one can make the exact same mistakes in previous loops. And in the end, they all backfire, and the end goal and ending of events ends up altering tremendously, and it just messes with you to an absurd degree that you don't even know what's going to happen next, and you constantly watch every single episode to figure out what's different, and you realize there are a lot of differences in the show, in particular in the setting of Hinamizawa. Certain aspects and objects are changed, and the context of these certain familiar situations are also altered. Hell, even certain arcs can be fused together to make a whole new arc with different aspects of it, and with their endings being entirely different. The culprits for these murders can be completely out there people who have never been a culprit in any scenario. And from what I hear from visual novel readers, certain characters like Mion, who was said to be the culprit in the second arc of the original Higurashi, was never really a culprit in the visual novels or in any of the subsequent time loops, as she is more or less a person that is open with people and is never really super suspicious of others, and she's very trusting. And despite all that, she has great communication skills, so she can always find a way to not be insanely paranoid, and she won't succumb to this very same sickness. Meanwhile, everyone else in the cast, primarily the likes of Keiichi, Rena, and Shion, are very prone to these spans of paranoia, particularly Rena in very strong instances, as she has had a previous encounter with this virus. So it's pretty interesting to see her actually be a culprit in the first arc of Higurashi Go in the most surprising and subtle way that literally shook me to my core, because I did not expect this to happen at all. I knew things would end up differently, but I just didn't know how. And then the second half of Go comes in, giving us pretty much all of the answers we needed, with how Rika ended up in the loops, who is the new mastermind. And I did say spoilers, but Satoko being the new mastermind actually makes really good sense, due to all the trauma and stuff that's happened to her in the past when she was growing up, and she apparently has already been dosed with treatment for her high levels of Hinamizawa syndrome, but by the end of the series, she is quotably cured. And what makes her transformation into the antagonist and honestly full-on villain by the end of Go, in her whole reveal, is that her transformation makes sense. She was still in a weak place mentally. Rika is her best friend, but was the only real person that has been able to keep her afloat, the only person that mattered to her, and kept her from going off the deep end back when she had Hinamizawa syndrome. Same with her life in Hinamizawa and all her friends. They were all around her, giving her positive reinforcement, thus causing her to grow as a person. But all these mental scars do not just heal. And the second things start to change and go wrong, she actually begins to snap. Through the powers of this new character, Ewa, who, according to Umineko readers, has a different name and is supposed to pertain to the series Umineko, which I also have not read, so I'm probably going to end up reading that at some point also. She ends up getting the power to time loop as well, and after realizing all this, tries to change things subtly, in her own way. But she is not full on asking people for help, which makes sense for her character, as she's good at hiding her emotions and not exactly leaning on others in trying to solve things herself, sometimes, in this case, by force. And after experiencing the exact same heartbreak again, it messes with her mentally once more. And by the end, when we see how Rika dies, it is by Satoko. Her and Rika, she essentially kills Rika herself after her loop the first time around, and it was shocking to end the episode like that. And then to have a basic montage of Satoko trying to get Rika to stay in the village and not go to that exact same place that brought her all this heartbreak, and having her and Rika die over and over again, sometimes by Satoko's own hand, can really show how much she has begun to crack and become way more unstable, even to the fact where she would go as far as to witness all of Rika's tragedy for over 100 years worth of time loops and still want to just break her. It shows how fragile the human mind can be, and just by having these own mental scars can actually really affect you in the future, no matter how much you've matured. In all honesty, this actually reminds me of the Joker quote, "It just takes one bad day." And to Satoko, it has been multiple bad days, and a lot of times she has witnessed whole sorts of heartbreak and subjecting herself to loop after loop so she can try and change her fate. And this is honestly why I'm really liking Higurashi now, because Satoko's actions would not make much sense unless you know everything from the prior series and all of everything that Rika's had to go through as well. So now you have no idea how this series is going to end, if Rika's actually going to win, or if Satoko is actually going to succeed in breaking her and get her own future, or if it's just going to end badly for both of them. And I think the reason why everyone is basically liking Satoko becoming a villain, and it's not just the fact that people kind of figure that Satoko will make a good antagonist, is the main thing is that when Higurashi first came out with the first season, we all basically figured that everything that was happening was because of the fragility of the human mind, how enough stress, paranoia, it could affect you mentally, and it could make you hallucinate, it could basically make you incredibly violent, it could break you to an extent that you probably couldn't even imagine, even in Higurashi's case, mass murder. So to see Satoko actually go down this road in a somewhat realistic way, with her dwindling mental states and her going full on psycho, it kind of plays into what we originally thought Higurashi was going to be about. So it's honestly why I think everyone, or at least most everyone, enjoy the fact of Satoko becoming a villain, aside from it being thematically and characteristically possible for it to actually happen in the first place. And that's honestly why I think Go did a really awesome job at turning Higurashi into what is in like a good series I really enjoyed, like an 8 out of 10. I would give it an 8 out of 10 at first, to now being so close to being a 10 out of 10. Depending on how Sotsu ends, which I presume is going to be the last season of Higurashi, at least for now, unless it ends up continuing after this point, I do see Sotsu actually being like the end-all be-all ending of Higurashi, depending on how things end up wrapping up, as we're basically gearing up to see the events of the first 3 arcs of the Higurashi Go season in a new perspective, and it's going to be answer arcs. So I honestly can't wait to see how all this ends up playing out, and how this will enhance my excitement for the series, as now I can't wait to see how these new answer arcs help fulfill how everything in the beginning of this new season unfolded, how Satoko's involvement changed things, and maybe even see what happens to Satoko and Rika in the end. Everything's all up in the air at this point, so I honestly can't really tell, but that anticipation really gets me excited to see what happens next, and that's honestly what any good series should do. Make you think and make you really excited for what happens next. At the end of every episode of Go, and even the original Higurashi, I was anticipating and excited for what could possibly happen next, and it left me on the edge of my seat, making me think of what I would do to get out of this, or how our protagonists can get out of this particular situation, as it seems like it's a definite checkmate. But in the end, we have no way of knowing, and honestly, I'd rather not know at this point, because in all honesty, Higurashi is just great watching the first time around for that extra boost of adrenaline to see what could happen next, and then rewatching it will give you more insight on how these events transpired. And with Sotsu coming out, hopefully being the end of the series, or the gateway to another series, because apparently Umineko might actually be a continuation of Higurashi from what people think, so I have no idea, that's up in the air. I haven't read it. If I read it and I believe they're interconnected, then I'm going to be like, holy crap. But yeah, in the end, Higurashi is honestly one of my all-time favorites, and everything I just said is only a good amount of why I believe it's such. Some things just have to remain unsaid, like it's hard to bring a lot of things to mind on why you like a particular series, especially if you have to write it down on paper or even tell other people about it. You just have to watch and see why people like it. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. I honestly expect this to be a bit shorter, but I tend to ramble a lot. If you guys like Higurashi, don't forget to check out my old Higurashi video that I did back in November. Again, I'll have it in the title card or down in the description below. Also, if you guys want to see more people making Higurashi content, I suggest going to Huntaru, who actually did a whole series on Higurashi Go, going arc by arc, comparing the opening arcs of Go to the original, what's different, what's the same, and as well as his theories on what could happen next, and even going over the final 2 arcs of Higurashi Go, to now doing a bunch of perspective videos and theory videos for Higurashi at the moment, which I believe by the time this video is uploaded, he should have his 3rd Higurashi video in a row out, which I'm anticipating for right now. But if you also want to see someone go back and revisit the original Higurashi with someone who's actually seen it originally and going back through it, I suggest going to check out Crew on the Sofa's retrospective on Higurashi. He does an amazing job with those retrospective videos, some really nice gags. He makes some really nice insights and comments on the series, especially for a show that came out in the early 2000s. And his content is honestly just straight up enjoyable. So if you haven't already, go subscribe to Huntaru and Crew on the Sofa, because they make some really nice Higurashi videos. Crew on the Sofa, I believe he's working on more parts for his retrospective series, and the wait is worth it. The guy puts a lot of heart and effort into his videos. Same with Huntaru, and these two are honestly really great guys, and I highly recommend their content. But with all that said and done, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, because as much as I love promoting other people, I need to eat. So please like and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. If you want to see me doing more Higurashi videos in the future, maybe I'll cover Sotsu. Maybe I'll do an overall review video of Sotsu in the end, similar to this one. But yeah, with all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have an awesome day.